Okay. This smells. This doesn't just smell to the public right now that the budget of the party was never put before. Forget about the budgetary committee for a second. Put before the people who have a fiduciary responsibility, whether it's Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, whether it's Donna Brazile when she was chair, when she was vice chair, or Vice Chair Ray Buckley, or Dr. Jim Zogby over here. That's over half the executive committee right there had no idea where the money was going. We spent $1 billion, lost the easiest presidential race you could possibly imagine with joint fundraising agreements. State parties weren't being funded. During the DNC chair's race, there were some state party chairs who said, I'm an acting executive director and I have $3,000 cash on hand. How are you supposed to rebuild the party if you have no idea where that money was spent? And you know what? I did go through FEC filings, and it doesn't look good. It smells. We're talking about close to $700 to $800 million between the joint fundraising agreement and the DNC being spent on 5 consultants. This is not a public outrage issue. The DNC chairs are upset, the officers are upset, and I don't know who's on the Budget and Finance Committee. I did go to the meeting. It was 15 minutes long, and there was a pie chart that was put on screen. Yeah. But I would, as a Democratic Party member of this commission, we have a duty, and people are watching us right now. The number one issue I get asked out in the public by DNC members is, what are you going to do about the budget? It is absolutely ridiculous that we are going to keep a status quo system when it basically says we're going to continue to lose 1,200 seats. Let me describe what losing 1,200 seats looks like, or the remaining seats we have. If you're in Trump, yes, but let's break that down a little bit. If you're in Arizona and you have an ectopic pregnancy, you can't go to a Planned Parenthood clinic because it's gone, because that state legislature is lost. So you have to drive over to New Mexico. And if you bleed to death on the way, you know whose fault that is? In my mind, that's a Democratic Party that wasn't funded, recruiting candidates, investing in local parties. And that is our fault, because we have put that money to the top 5 consultants. And
this is Nomika Kantz going in on the DNC at the Democratic National Committee Unity Reform Commission. Now, if you remember, in 2016, after Clinton and Sanders had their particular race, there was a split. People flew away from the Democratic Party after what they considered, and were right to consider, cheating. They cheated Sanders. The public understood they cheated Sanders. Turned around and lost 1,100 to 1,200 seats all throughout the United States. And Kantz, her point of view is, you spent nearly $1 billion to lose 1,100 seats, the presidency, the House, the Supreme Court, and the Senate. You lost it all. And you spent nearly $1 billion on 5 consultants who apparently didn't know what the fuck they were doing. She was pissed off. She should have been pissed off. This was the commission that was supposed to come up with plans to kind of bring the party back together. All of those people that fled, all of those people that left, all of those people that was disenchanted, that came to the conclusion that this party is not that big of a difference than the other party. Well, those people left. You had some people that voted down ticket and didn't vote for Clinton or Trump. Think about what I'm saying here. The entire point of this Unity Commission was because of what happened in 2016. And this was supposed to be the thing that brings people back into the party. That's what that was supposed to be. Now, I never believed the shuck and jive because they could never be honest with the fact that they cheated Sanders. And if you can't be honest about that, then I don't believe you're going to be honest about the other stuff. I thought this was a dog and pony show. One of the things that they came up with, one of the recommendations had to do with superdelegates. Because Sanders would, let's say, win Vermont, and then the media will report it as Sanders wins Vermont, but Hillary Clinton got 300 delegates, or whatever the number was. Meaning the superdelegates were being added in to the vote tallies. So when people would look at the vote tallies, they would say, God, he's getting crushed. Not because he was losing the states, per se, but because ultimately the delegates, the superdelegates that Hillary Clinton had already sewed up, regardless of what the state wanted, will go for Clinton. That looks bad. That stinks. So one of the things that many Sanders supporters pushed for, and lefties and people like Nomika, was you got to get rid of the superdelegates. That is effectively a way for the party to put its thumb on the scale to choose their own candidate. And this is the thing that would allow potentially for them to shaft Sanders. Fact of the matter is, when they made that rule, they made a rule that says, all right, superdelegates can't vote on the first vote. But wait, but you still have superdelegates. Yes, those superdelegates haven't gone anywhere, but they're only active on the second vote. Meaning, if you're Sanders and you win it outright, then you just win it outright. The superdelegates don't get a choice. However, if you are Sanders and you don't get enough votes and it goes to the second round, well, those superdelegates come back in full force. And you know who those superdelegates don't like? Bernie fucking Sanders. It doesn't matter what the public wants. The DNC argued in court that they can cheat a candidate if they want to. We're a corporation for all intents and purposes. We can cheat and we can pick a candidate in a back room. That's what superdelegates basically is. We, superdelegates, know better than what the public wants. The DNC has used this in order to tap down on push down grassroots candidates. I hope you understand what I mean. These guys are lobbyists. These guys are some Democratic creatures as functionaries of a party itself. And with all of these Democrats and all of the consternation about Sanders because of the way he's been rising in the polls and the way that Biden has been dropping in the polls, they are freaked out. They are freaked out. One story after the next comes out with stop Sanders. How are we going to stop Sanders? The Democratic Party is freaking out and trying to figure out a way to stop Sanders. Super PAC running ads in order to stop Sanders. In fact, take a look at this. This is the most recent poll that came out. Wall Street Journal, NBC News. Sanders up 6. This is the first time Sanders took the lead in this poll. Biden down 2, Warren down 3. National poll. I can show you many of these. California, Texas, Iowa, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. All of these states are states potentially that Sanders can win or is in the lead currently. They are freaked out. He is surging. And I mean that across as a trend. Surging. Their issue is, how do you stop Sanders? And how do you do it in a way that at the very least doesn't allow the public to think that we just outright cheated him, even though it may come to the point where we may need to just outright cheat him in order to stop him. Think about what these guys are doing. Tom Perez has put in all of these Hillary supporters and all of these people who hate Sanders into various positions, including John Podesta, the person who Hillary Clinton, that was her campaign manager, including John Podesta. You've effectively put people in that hate Sanders' guts. Lobbyists, the moneyed interests, those people have become part of the Democratic Party from the standpoint of the committees themselves. Tom Perez did that. Tom Perez was the one that Bill Clinton said, hey, don't let Sanders take the party. It seems that when Sanders is surging with all the consternation that's going on within the context of the Democratic establishment, they have stepped up that point of view. We got to stop Sanders. Now, how do you stop Sanders, though? How do you do that? Ultimately, if people think you cheated him again, that is the end of the Democratic Party. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. There is no Democratic Party if the Democratic Party tries to cheat Sanders. Whether they know that or not, whether they believe that or not, it is true. If the public themselves, in one state after the next, where Sanders starts to run away with it, he gets just enough votes that is not enough to win, but more than anybody else, and it forces it to a second round, they will steal this from him. That is the entire point of superdelegates. The entire point. And now there's conversation to bring the superdelegates back into the first round. Welcome to a pissed off soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal or Patreon. One of my subscribers sent me this. I think it was Crozette Owls, making the point that the Democratic Party is effectively considering, or let's say elements of the DNC are considering or floating the idea of reinstating superdelegates. In Iowa, Joe Biden is flailing. A pro-Joe Biden super PAC pumped in nearly $1 million for Iowa ad buys. This is also another committee or another group that's affiliated with the Democratic Party, again, comes out making ads attacking Sanders, saying he's not electable. You could do that. I mean, that's your political, that's your own political point of view, your own political ideology. And within the context of primaries are going to be competitive. And you make those arguments. I make those arguments against them. They can make that argument against my guy. Fair enough. No issue with that. I'm talking more so about the rule set itself. Changing the rules to allow Bloomberg the opportunity to get into the race when you've excluded all of these other people like Gabbard and Booker and Yang and all these other people who couldn't get on the debate stage. And all of a sudden you changed the rules to allow Bloomberg to do it after getting $325,000. Your guy's flailing. You didn't think Sanders had a chance, but he does have a chance. And not just have a chance. It is possible he is going to run away with this, especially if the surging keeps taking place. We vote in Iowa on Monday. And I can show you the polling. Look at this. This is Iowa. What do you think is going to happen if Sanders takes Iowa? Look at this. 23-20. Sanders has jumped up over Biden. 24-15, 30, 21. Here's one with Biden, but this goes back to 123. Sanders, 25-17. As you can see, he's starting to run away with it. Same thing in New Hampshire that takes place next week. It's not even close. He's opened up a 10-point gap on Joe Biden. They are freaking out. Joe Biden can't carry the burden. Joe Biden has been lying about his record, flagrantly lying to African Americans about being part of the civil rights movement, lying about his record on Social Security, lying about his record on the Iraq war vote. He's just been lying. And if you have to lie that much, the question needs to be asked, why? Why? Why do you have to lie that much about your record? Why? And I hate to tell you this, that this notion that beating Trump and you need somebody like a Biden, well, those people thought Hillary Clinton was inevitable. The same people who think Hillary Clinton is inevitable thinks Biden is going to beat Trump. And that is the only thing Biden is running on. He's not running on policy. He's not running on a great record. He's running on, you know me, I'm Joe Biden. I was hamming it up with Obama. I can beat him like a drum. John Kerry, loss. Hillary Clinton, loss. Al Gore, loss. Joe Biden is a dumber version of all of those other people. And he's expected to win? What do you have at your disposal to get across to me that Joe Biden can win this race when everybody else like him lost? When he lost. So the question becomes, what is the DNC going to do? Is the DNC going to try to outright cheat Sanders in order to stop him from winning this race and this primary, especially if he takes Iowa? All hell is going to break loose. I'm telling you now, all hell is going to break loose because he will take Iowa. He will take New Hampshire. And if the momentum goes into Nevada and he takes California and he takes Texas and he takes Massachusetts, he is going to run away with this. They know it. They know it. Freaked out Democrats. DNC members discuss rule change to stop Sanders at the convention. This is political. This is political. A small group of Democratic National Committee members have privately begun to gauging support for a plan to potentially weaken Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign and head off a brokered convention. In conversations on the sidelines of the DNC Executive Committee meeting and the telephone calls and text messages in recent days, about a half dozen members have discussed the possibility of a policy reversal to ensure that the so-called superdelegates can vote on the first ballot at the party's national convention. Think about that for the moment. These guys have a Unity Reform Commission that I call the dog and pony show. There's a fig leaf, or at the very least a bone, that was thrown to lefties who screamed that they won something despite the fact that superdelegates were still there. Just because they don't vote on the first round doesn't necessarily mean that the party wouldn't collaborate in some way to try to force it to a second round where those delegates can come into full force. They believe it's possible for Sanders to either take it outright or get enough delegates where he has more than everyone else, forcing a second round. That's what they're terrified of. What they want is the superdelegates to be able to get their vote in the first round with the potential of being able to effectively stop Sanders. This is what the DNC is talking about. This is what's being floated in order to try to get support, again, to stop Sanders. I hope these people realize that will effectively be the end of the Democratic Party. You will go the way of the Whigs. You think I am antagonistic to the party now. Wait till you do some stupid shit like that. If you want Trump in office, that's what you're going to do. If you want Trump to win, do you, boo. Do what you got to do. If you want to stop Sanders so much that you are willing to outright, utterly, and entirely destroy the Democratic Party, because goddamn it, I'm telling you that is exactly what will happen. All of those lefties bit their heads and still voted for Hillary Clinton, taking a shower afterwards because they couldn't get the stink off of them. And now you have a situation where trying to get these guys back, you have this dog and pony show, and now you have members who don't like that. who don't like the fact that they've been relegated to a second round vote, as if they should have some special powers over the other people that are voting. The Republicans don't have super delegates at all. They don't have them at all. So whatever you want to say about them cheating and everything else, okay, fair enough. But they don't do it inside the party. They allowed a fair, clean race. You can't say the same thing about the Democratic Party in 2016, and you damn sure can't say it now. This is what they're talking about on the sidelines, floating this idea. I do believe we should reopen the rules. I hear it from others as well. One DNC member said in a text message last week to William Owens, DNC member from Tennessee, who does not support reopening the rules. Even proponents of the change acknowledge it is all but certain not to gain enough support to move past the initial conversations, but the talk revealed the extent of angst that many establishment Democrats are feeling on the eve of the Iowa caucus. If Sanders wins the Iowa caucus on Monday and continues to gain momentum, it is possible he could arrive at the convention with the most delegates, but without enough to win the nomination on the first ballot. It is also possible that he and Elizabeth Warren, a fellow quote-unquote progressive, could arrive at the convention in second and third place, but with more delegates combined than the frontrunner. Conversations about the potential rule changes picked up as Sanders ascended to the primary, but have not gained traction at this point within the DNC. But think about what you just heard. None of this became an issue when Joe Biden was winning. Members of the DNC who vehemently hate Sanders, don't even consider him a Democrat, are floating this idea of, hey, we need to find some way to stop him because he's doing great now in the election and we're about to do our voting. So how are we going to use the powers that are distributed to us to effect a stopping of him? Will some of these guys get a call from Obama? Will some of these guys get a call from Bill Clinton and change their mind at the convention to change the rules? Would you put that past them? Think about it. Would you put that past them? Think about what happened in 2016. Do you honestly put it past them with all of the articles that you've been reading, with all of the tight and puckered asses that Sanders is doing so well? Do you believe that they won't go this route in trying to derail that candidacy? The fact that they're even talking about this, and they're only talking about this in the context of Sanders doing well, should give you serious qualms about what these guys might end up doing to shaft Sanders and his supporters. So right here, here's another one. There's talk about somehow trying to change the rules at the convention, just casual conversation. I have participated in it some, said Don Fowler, a former DNC chairman from South Carolina, who opposed the DNC's decision to strip superdelegates in 2016. But I want to be clear that I would not be party to any effort to do that in the 2020 convention. It's bad sportsmanship. No shit. I think it would be not in good faith for those who lost the fight in the committee to somehow regenerate the fight in the national convention. If they did, it would result in the most hellacious fight you've ever seen at the Democratic convention. I'm glad you understand that. I am glad you understand that. Fair enough. I'm glad you grasped that. The rule change was widely booed as a major victory for the Democratic Party's left flank. At the time, Perez called the superdelegates overhaul historic, while progressive Democrats and many moderates lauded its appeal to young voters skeptical of a centralized party power. You guys are being naive. Go back and look at my old videos on this. I was very clear that the superdelegates haven't gone anywhere. You've decreased the power only on the first round, but there is nothing to stop the politics of it to force a second round vote. And if you're going to force a second round vote, and if the people who you've selected to be those superdelegates hate Sanders, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? It's called re-electing Donald Trump. But the member who declined to be identified said the convention body is the ultimate authority of the party, so the convention body can do anything that they want to do. He added, "We haven't had the first vote in the primary yet. Let's see how the panic sets in as things progress. More likely, it's a bid to rewrite the rules after the convention in Milwaukee, not for this year's nominating contest, but for 2024. Think about what they're saying here. They gave one person enough influence for 10,000, 15,000 voters, depending on the location that you're in. And they justified this by saying, well, we're members of the party. We've been members of the party for a while. We've been giving a lot of money to the party in time, so we should get an outsized vote. No. Fact of the matter is, if you're going to use superdelegates to shaft a candidate then the superdelegates shouldn't exist. Period. You didn't use it back in 2016 in order to stop Clinton, who was the weaker candidate. You used it to make it look like Sanders was losing from day one. Changing this, be it now or in 2024, to go back to the superdelegates thing, is effectively trying to regain the ability and the influence in the party of the established order. That's what this is about. They don't like the fact that they can't get into the first round in order to stop Sanders. And because they don't like that, and because they're starting to panic makes people do strange, weird, and outright hellacious things. This would be one of them. If the Democratic Party and the DNC wants to end up like the Whigs, do you, boo? This is the pathway to do it. Tom Perez, to his credit, caddied, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We put in work to ensure power was returned to the grassroots. We will be following the rules set forth by the DNC. We will not bend on this. We will not change the rules. Except when it comes to Bloomberg, I suppose. Except when it comes to Bloomberg. Because you are perfectly willing to change the rules in order to let Bloomberg in. Right? Right, Tom? So when I see this, I hear what you're saying, Tom. But I don't know if I believe you. I don't know if I believe you at all. Sanders' senior advisor, Jeff Weaver, citing the party's multi-year process to reform the nominating contest, said in a text that trying to undo these reforms will be a serious mistake. Donna Brazile, my side, including me, we lost the debate, said Brazile, a former DNC chairwoman who sits on the Body, Rules, and Bylaws Committee. I don't believe it is wise to reopen the wound once it has healed. By 2024, she said, the rules will once again be fair game, just like they were after 2016. So effectively, all right, we don't want to add in our superdelegates on this, at least some. But in 2024, fair game. We can get our influence back. We can put our thumb back on the scale. The fight should have been to get rid of superdelegates in its entirety. The fact that Donna Brazile served in Congress, the fact that Donna Brazile is a known media personality, should in and of itself be enough. Why do you need this many votes to put your thumb on the scale? Why should you get this many votes to put your thumb on the scale? And to open this now with this notion, this clear point of view where members of the DNC effectively just want to stop Sanders. If this was fucking Joe Biden or Mike Bloomberg, this shit wouldn't come up at all. They wouldn't be talking about a rule change at all. This is your DNC. This is the party that is supposed to give Sanders a fair shot. Do you honestly believe that they're going to give him a fair shot on this? No. So the question becomes, what does Sanders do? Is Sanders okay with this? Is Sanders okay with them changing the rules to allow Bloomberg to get on the stage, despite the fact that they use those same rules to get rid of everybody else? Are they okay with people within the context of the DNC that is supposed to be running a fair process now talking about changing the rules of that process? Is he okay with them putting all of these Hillary supporters into the various committees? It looks like they are trying to get into the position to shaft Sanders. It is unclear how they're going to do it, but it seems like they are definitely gearing up for it. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they tried this rule change. Not in the least. Would they do it? Who knows? Once Sanders starts winning New Hampshire, if he wins, put it this way, if he takes Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, California, if he takes those states, they're going to freak the fuck out. And if they freak the fuck out, this may change. You heard the guy. Wait till the panic sets in when Sanders starts taking states. They cannot be trusted. My opinion in the very beginning was that Sanders was effectively running against everybody else that was in the race, including the DNC. He had no friends in this process. It was him versus everyone else. That's the way I looked at it. I thought Warren was in the race at the behest of either Clinton or some of the established members of the party in order to stop him from getting in, or at the very least to sap enough strength away from him so Biden or somebody else can crawl over the finish line. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work at all. That didn't work at all. So now people are like, how are we going to fucking stop him? How are we going to shaft the American public? How are we going to stop them from getting the things that the public has deemed popular? How are we going to stop him? The guy has 20,000 people coming to his rallies. Joe Biden can't fill a doghouse. How are we going to stop him? Well, you can see it starting up. You can see it starting up. That's astonishing. The fact that this conversation comes up is in and of itself astonishing. You will not get a fair shake in this race. You will not. Sanders has to blow them out. Meaning, if there is any kind of deviation in the polling where Sanders gets to the point where they can't entirely predict the amount of people he's bringing to the polls and it becomes a blowout, we can revisit this. Because we're going to see whether or not the DNC is going to buckle and say, okay, we'll allow him to go through. We're not going to put a knife in him. Or if they try through some kind of, nefarious means of trying to inhibit, to stop, or to shaft him. I'll say it this way. If the Democratic Party wants to implode and no longer exist and no longer become a viable party, then yes, follow this course. Float this idea. At the convention, try to rip it away from him. See what happens. You, once again, have been warned. This is Marcus Will. Tulsi, Yang, Williamson have directly called out the DNC. Heard anything from Sanders yet? I haven't heard anything from Sanders yet on this. I've heard Jeff Weaver make the point that, I've heard Michael Moore make the point that these guys are trying to rig the system against Sanders. Again, Bloomberg only got into the race to stop Sanders. And the idea that they're going to allow him on the debate stage when they've excluded all of these other people is fucking amazing. That's fucking phenomenal. That they think that's okay. They think that's okay. Tom Perez, I can't change the rules. I can't change the rules. I'm bound by the rules that I've created. $325,000 in your pocket. Well, maybe we can make an exception. Maybe we can make an exception. Fucking astonishing. Cult fighter, Bernie 2020, Bernie 2020, indeed. Pop reality. Hashtag Bernie or Yellow Vest need to win almost every race. Pop, yes. He is going to have to blow them out the water. Like, it can't be close. Cheating is often going to be done in the margins. I'm even concerned about them having a fair race from the standpoint of the vote counts. If my name is Bernie Sanders, I would be calling this shit out verbosely. I would have my lieutenants, I would have all those people out there attacking the DNC for what it looks like they're trying to do, which is to find a way to either shaft him or his platform. I trust them as much as I trust the Blairites to back Jeremy Corbyn. That's how much I trust them. This is phenomenal. This is goddamn phenomenal. The DNC is trying to end its own existence. Pop reality. We live in a dystopian times where we're trying to save the planet, and yet we have opposition. Shaking my head, indeed. Think about that. Think about that. One guy says we want to provide health care. Another guy says, the same guy, I want to ensure that people can go to school without having massive amounts of debt on our backs. Understand that debt is not just the individual debt. That debt affects the entirety of society. When those people can't move to a particular place, can't see the world or travel, they can't get a house, they can barely get married. All of these things, this fucking debt that's on their backs. And why? Only because they had to temerity to get an education, something that benefits the society itself. And despite the benefit to the society, this society, capitalistic society, individualism, that really only benefits the top 1%, meaning the 1% makes an argument. The political class makes that argument. The media makes that argument. But that's not really the reality. That argument is only pertinent to them because they can afford it, because all of them are fucking rich. All of these people who go to school, and when they go to school and they get an education, and they put that education to work within the context of the society, you realize that makes your life better. Even if you're not standing there with them, even if you're not in the same state, the fact that that person got an education makes your life and our world and our society better, especially in a competitive environment. That is not something you should create a disincentive in doing. That's something that us as a society should come together and realize this is the best for all of us. Whether I have kids or not. I have to pay my fucking taxes to schools here and I don't have one kid or child. Healthcare, education, these are massive, massive expenses. And the notion that the guy who says, yes, I want to cover these things, the government can cover these things. And the DNC, who's supposed to be the left-leaning party in this, doesn't want to touch it. Think about that. If Bernie Sanders wins and he puts through his policy proposals, Medicare for all, I want to get the troops out of Iraq. We're going to pay off student loans and education. Effectively, we're going to make people's lives at the bottom better. White, black, gay, straight, trans, whatever. We're going to make your life better. And the DNC, who effectively is broke and paid by the same oligarchs that effectively paid the Republican Party, comes out to shaft that guy. Understand, the policies that Sanders are pushing are popular. He himself is one of the most popular senators in this country. He's considered more honest by double digits over everybody in the race, considered more authentic than everybody else in the race. His policies are more liked than everybody else in the race. The DNC, still, despite all of that, despite all of the popularity, despite all of the money he's been raising, despite the crowds that he's been bringing to those events that rival or even exceed the crowds that Trump has been bringing to events, despite all of that, they're still, we need to shaft that guy. We need to stop that guy. What the fuck? What the fuck? A party or corporation that will go into court and argue we have every right to cheat a candidate if we want to cheat a candidate. We are a private corporation. This is an internal dynamic. If we want to smoke a cigar and choose who we want, that is perfectly acceptable and perfectly legal. It's not fraud, even if we lie to the public to get them to donate. It's not fraud. A party that will go into court and make that argument. Do I honestly believe that this is just harmless banter? No. This is them floating the idea to try to get more support for the idea. Yes, it annoys the shit out of me. I'm angry. Wesley Walker Jr., they've learned nothing from 2016. I'm done being civil with these swamp creatures. Wesley Walker, yes, same here. Same here. I said before that they would rather Trump win than Sanders win. If Trump wins, for the most part, it would utterly destroy the left for years, just like with Corbyn. Go look back at what's taking place in England and Britain. Corbyn loses. He's weak. The Labour Party is utterly destroyed. And the thing that they did was turn around, and the fact is the issue really was Brexit. That was the issue that Labour wasn't talking about. And they lost because of their position on Brexit. But that's not the way it's being cast. Many of the right and many on the left, the Blairites, just point to Corbyn and say, see, we told you that couldn't win. It's all your fault. If Elizabeth Warren had gotten out of the primary and lost to Trump, the same thing would have happened. And they would have blamed the left, missing the fact that the woman is not entirely on the left. She would have been the weakest person to carry that message. If Sanders loses, they know what I know, that they can point to that and say, he lost because he went too far to the left. We told you he couldn't bring in those moderates. We told you he couldn't bring in the people in these other states. We told you. Now, understand, they would do this despite Al Gore losing, despite Hillary Clinton losing, despite John Kerry losing, despite all of these people losing. The only Democrat that won, for the most part, was the guy that pretended to be hope and change. Black man with a Muslim name. I wouldn't be surprised if they step up ways to try to cheat and take this from him. And yes, the question becomes, where the fuck is Sanders? Because he needs to be screaming from the rooftops that these conversations are even taking place. Cult fighter, Bernie or get what you deserve, DNC. Right there. Right there. Not fucking around. If they cheat him, look, the only person I am voting for at this point is Sanders. The only person. Cheat him if you want, but you are going to ensure that Donald Trump wins this race. The only person that matches up well with Trump is Sanders. The attacks that are going to be leveled at Joe Biden are going to be not just unnerving, but it's going to undermine Biden completely. You can't call Trump corrupt when Joe Biden has all of these corrupt family members, essentially this kind of nepotism, this rank. They want to call it soft corruption. It's just corruption that follows him with his family members essentially living off of Joe Biden's name. You can't call one guy corrupt when you yourself are ensconced in corruption. I mean, for fuck's sake, even the slow stuff, the where's Hunter Biden t-shirts, the attacks on Social Security, the attacks on criminal justice. They are waiting for Joe Biden because Joe Biden is probably one of the easiest people to beat in this race, despite all of these other people calling him electable. But do you realize Joe Biden has gotten to the point, because he's been getting beat up so much on Social Security, where he's just started handing out talking points. This is what I want to say. He didn't want to talk to the press. He just handed out talking points. That's the guy that they're talking about is going to beat Trump like a drum. He can't even explain his case. Can't even explain his goddamn case. This is so fucking aggravating. I don't want Trump to win a second term. Trump is going to win this impeachment hearing. When he wins this impeachment hearing, he's going to go out and say, I've been vindicated on multiple occasions. I was vindicated in the trial that these guys had that was a sham. I was vindicated in the Mueller report that came out that was a sham. I've been vindicated, and they've never accepted the election results. That's what he's going to say. And he's going to run around the country attacking Democrats and attacking the process, getting his people fired up with this notion of they didn't allow me to do what I wanted to do. I tried to drain the swamp and they stopped me. All of this is bullshit, by the way, but it would not stop him one iota from saying it. Depending on who he runs against, that attack is either emboldened or undermined. Meaning the attacks that you use on Joe Biden just don't work on Sanders. You can call the guy a socialist, fair enough, but he already calls himself that. You can call him old, but yeah, he already knows that and everyone else knows that. You could say that his plans are expensive. Everybody already knows that. Meaning he's not hiding the ball, whereas Joe Biden continuously lies. And in the continuous lying, you have ways of attacking Joe Biden. It undermines your attacks on Trump, calling him a liar when you yourself are getting caught with lies left and right. The person who you want to put up against Trump is Sanders. I would hope that the people realize that and not just go along with this stupid notion of electability, this, fickle, esoteric concept. Ultimately, you choose your friends, you choose the people who you are around, you choose your news and media at this point. What you consider to be electable is just the bubble to which you exist in. That's all it is. You've seen Joe Biden around forever, so you think you know who he is. And fact is, many people don't, especially if they haven't looked to 20 years or 30 years when he was in Senate trying to get as many black people locked up as possible or trying to get stopping integration efforts. My point is basic, right? What's the objective? Is objective to beat Trump, or is the objective to stop Sanders? And I suppose it's probably a little bit of both. But fact of the matter is, in trying to stop Sanders, you will allow Trump to exceed, either from people fleeing the party when you cheat him, or just outright losing, getting bullied, whichever right-wing candidate you put up. You have been warned. You have been warned. The DNC will now prop up Bloomberg. They take Trump over Bernie. This is the end of the DNC. Yes. Yes. Louise Brooks, yes. This is effectively the end of the DNC. I hope they understand that, and I hope they realize that. And the notion of putting superdelegates back into 2024. Yeah, we lost power in this election, and Bernie Sanders was able to take it. But in 2024, we'll get our power back. The concept of superdelegates needs to be utterly destroyed. That is one of the most anti-democratic processes that they use to put their thumb on the scale. And it's put into this kind of rule set as if the fact that it's in the rules makes it okay. You can have all sorts of shit in the rules that's not okay. Slavery at one point was in the rules that was allowed. Hell, you could probably beat your wife at one point, and I was like, oh, well, the guy's just being a guy. I'm making the point that you can have all sorts of rules doesn't necessarily make the rules right or fair. In this particular case, the rule that they changed had to do with the superdelegates. The superdelegates bitched and moaned, oh, we're supposed to have 10,000 more votes than the other people who are voting in the contest. For some reason. We deserve 10,000 more votes. We know better than you and the public. The public sometimes chooses the wrong person, like right now where they're choosing Bernie Sanders. So we need to be the man on the line or the woman on the line to stop the public from getting their choice. This will be, mark my words, this will be the end of the Democratic Party if they go through with this. Elephants on Coke, Kerry, Gore, Hillary lost, Obama won, and Democrats lost 1,000 seats. Either centrism or unelected, the country is right-wing only, can beat with charisma. Let me say that one more time, Elephants on Coke. Kerry, Gore, Hillary lost, Obama won, and Democrats lost 1,000 seats. I think it was 1,100 seats all throughout the country. Either centrism is unelectable, or the country is right-wing and only can be best beat with charisma. See, I don't think entirely it's charisma, right? Obama won because Obama ran on this notion of hope and change, meaning he gave people this idea of something that they wanted. It was like Pepsi commercial, where you have or the Coke commercial, where you have the little pale polar bears and they're rolling around with the Coke and that type of stuff. And people are like, oh, that's so cute. Well, really, it's a sugary drink that has syrup in it that is going to increase your glucose level. It's not something that is even good for you, and yet you think it's the cutest, adorable thing at all. It's this weird transference of your emotional to a particular product. That was Obama. That's all Obama was. He was a product. He comes out, he's using his race, he's using a certain degree of elegance, he looks presidential, and when he makes his arguments, oftentimes those things fall into this notion of hope and change, this rhetoric, this esoteric, big, emancipatory rhetoric that ultimately only meant he was going to give 95% of the gains to the top 1%. That he was going to let the homeowners go bust while throwing his body to protect the bankers. That he was going to knock over the governments in Syria while lying to the public saying, we don't have any boots on the ground. And the destruction of Libya, where you can now buy a black slave. Is that really hope and change? Is that really hope and change? Obama only won. He was just like the other ones. All of these guys were third-way Democrats. The only difference is Obama pretended to be something that he was not. Meaning people thought he was a lefty because of the way he talked. When he got in office, he was just a tick away from George Bush. Gore, Kerry, Clinton, all of them lost. All of them were effectively a smarter version of Joe Biden. And the notion that these people think that they're going to put up another third-way Democrat and that third-way Democrat is going to win, or even worse, that they're going to prop up a billionaire, Bloomberg, to run in that race. All of this is disgusting, and all of this speaks of a contest that does not seem fair and unbiased. It seems like they're trying to rig it, or at the very least, you have people who are coming together to try to figure out ways to stop Sanders, and don't mind going so far as to essentially destroy the DNC to do it. One time I had I've had 2 kidney transplants. The first one failed in I think like 6 to 8 months. The second one lasted a little bit longer. It lasted long enough for me to finish up my degree. When it started to fail, the doctor wanted to do various procedures in order to kind of kill your immune system. Like there's something called plasmapheresis, that's one thing. Also, they have like steroids and they have other drugs that for the most part can shut your immune system down to make it pretend as if, or to make it as if it doesn't see the kidney. Because after a while, with a strong immune system, and apparently African Americans and being younger, the immune system tends to be keyed up. And so when it sees the kidney or when it gets a bump, it attacks that thing that doesn't belong to you. I forget the name of that. God, I forgot the name. It's been so long since I took those classes. But nevertheless, at one point, in trying to save it, or trying to save the kidney, the doctor was like, look, we can do radiation, we can do some of these other procedures, but I don't want to be in a situation where we kill the patient in order to save the kidney. Meaning, we may be able to stop your immune system from destroying that kidney. However, you may die in the process. Either cancer because of the radiation, either something else because your immune system gets shut off, or whatever it is, we can't go as far as we may need to go in order to save that kidney. My point is this. From the standpoint of the DNC, they think they have a cancer. That cancer being Bernie Sanders. Their thinking is, how do we carve this cancer out and get back to the normal establishment politics where we can put up a milquetoast, unwanted candidate and get that candidate over the finish line just screaming Trump? How do we do it? How do we do it? Because Sanders is not running his race like that. He's running his race on policy, and it seems to be working. How do we stop him? The question for the DNC, Sanders is just a man. That's all he is. No better, no worse. He doesn't have magical powers. And just like in 2016, just like anybody else, he can be cheated. They can stop him from getting the nomination. I mean, Tom Perez was able to get over Keith Ellison in the DNC convention and was able to ignore rules to even get that point done. They do have the power to stop him. The question becomes, do they want to kill the patient to do it? The patient being the DNC. I'll leave it here. This is fucking aggravating to me because, look, you can't function looking at a contest saying this contest is going to be rigged. That doesn't allow you to function in a decent way. It even kills incentive to work with it. So you function in a way that says, yes, my candidate is going to win, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help that candidate win. If something comes up where my candidate is getting cheated, you need to consider that. In fact, not just consider that, that should have been talked about before you even got into the race, because it is very possible that they were going to do everything in their power to stop you. Meaning when you see stuff like this floating around the perimeter of a contest that you're going to be involved in, and you know these people in that contest don't like you, then you can see the stuff forming around where they're trying to get the potential to stop you. The question for the DNC is, how far are you going to go? How far are you going to go? Are you going to kill the patient to try to stop what you consider to be a virus? Sanders is trying to reinstate the Democratic Party. We already have a right-wing party in this country. We don't need two right-wing parties. And right now, both of these parties cater to the same oligarchical forces in the United States and abroad. Sanders doesn't. And because his focus is heavily on this notion of this country can be better, all of us can work together, we can have a united front in changing the hegemonic norms that we function in. He's done this already, by the way. The Overton window has shifted. They weren't talking about Medicare for all in 2008. You couldn't even get Obama to get on board for a public option. He just said, all right, Congress, write it. Just write it. Go for it. Whatever you write. My point is, education, healthcare, all of those things have been put on the map where they are talked about. Basically, this election is, do you agree with Sanders or not? And you had 20 people who are trying to pretend to be Bernie Sanders for all intents and purposes. Would the real Bernie Sanders please stand up? No. Native American, please sit down. You're not like him. I'll leave it. I don't want to just sit here and bitch, but aggravating, like nobody's business. Trina be fine. Every time I type Suzette, autocorrect changes it to the side of troll. What? Edge's dragon. A majority party is always able to make sure the party's nominee is not necessarily a winner, but someone who serves the party's interests. Yes, even if the nominee must be, in their view, a loser. Yes. Yes. You must understand, it's not just Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. Within the context of the Democratic Party itself, there are wars that are being fought. These wars that are being fought have everything to do with what does the Democratic Party stand for? And do you really need two parties that cater to rich? Is that necessary? And if you have two parties that entirely cater to the rich, how can you really ever get anything done that is in the best interests of the public? You can't. They haven't been. And yeah, if it comes down to Sanders and Trump, I don't entirely see a huge amount of support from the establishment part for Sanders. Nancy Pelosi with her $100 million is not injured by Sanders losing. The people in the DNC convention, they're not injured by Sanders losing. And if it allows them to essentially put a knife in the left, they will use that to put a knife in the left. These people are not your friends. These people are out here trying to take you down. They don't believe in what you believe in, and they consider you and your supporters to be an existential threat. You need to acknowledge that. You need to function from that premise. And not just function from that premise, have plans and strategies to deal with this. You're not going to get a fair contest. You are never going to get a fair contest. 22 people jumping in the fucking race. All of this was done to try to force a second round where these superdelegates are going to get back in. Their concern is that, what if it doesn't go to a second round? What if we don't have our influence? What if he blows them out in these few states and, like Trump, runs away with it? If we had our votes in the first round, we might be able to stop it. That's what all of this is about. The fact that they're having this conversation, the fact that this conversation ended up on Politico, This is them floating this idea to get more support for this idea. And one of them made the point, look, we can do whatever we want. If that means stripping the superdelegates or putting them back in the first round, if we agree to that, we can agree to that. And wait till panic sets in when Sanders starts winning these states. Yes, wait till panic sets in as Sanders starts winning these states. That's when all hell is going to break loose. And that's when you're going to see whether or not Tom Perez is really going to keep the promise of not allowing the first round issue. This is very simple. Very simple. Does the Democratic Party wants to destroy itself? Yay or nay? And if you do want to destroy yourself, the easiest and the most quickest and the fastest way to do it is to cheat Sanders. If you're okay with Trump being in office, if you're okay with them going after Social Security and Medicare, if you're okay with them undermining and getting rid of Obamacare, if you're okay with the wars that he might start from the standpoint of Iran or the fucking around in South America with the notion of attacking these other countries that Trump doesn't necessarily like, if you're okay with the destruction of the environment, somebody too stupid to realize that the climate is indeed changing and we're feeling the effects of those changes. Mind you, we feel it in a mild way. If you're in one of those island nations that had nothing to do with the climate change, you're getting hit significantly so. Do you really want weapons in space? Do you really want another space race with weapons flying over your head potentially to attack other nations or have those other nations to potentially attack you? Do you really want to go without these missile treaties with other countries? I'm asking you from the standpoint of you, the audience member, just the regular person. Are you okay with this? Because what is going to happen, and I'm telling you what's going to happen, if they cheat Sanders again, all of those people are going to leave. You're not going to win. And not just not going to win, you can have Sam Cedar bitching all you want. Oh, they should vote for so-and-so. They should vote. Sam Cedar said he'd vote for a can of soup. So that tells you where he's going to be, even if somebody like Biden gets through. It's just a canned response. I'm making the point that if they cheat him, you should leave that party and not look back. You should attack and vilify that party and call that shit out. This will be the second time that they did it. And again, since they said in court that they can cheat and pick a candidate in a back room without any issue, they can still do it now. There's no consequences for them cheating Sanders in 2016, and many of them don't even own up to it. Many of them don't even own up to it. They will take Trump over Sanders. I'm not talking about the regular voter. I'm talking about the establishment Democrats that hate his guts, the Hillary supporters, the third way Democrats that are in power. They hate us. They hate his guts. They hate what you stand for. They hate the fact that you're empathetic and believe that the country could change. They hate the fact that you have a certain vision of what you want the world to be. And even if you can't get that vision in this kind of exponential way, at the very least, you can try to push society in a direction that helps a large swath of people. You can bring trust back into the political process. You can't do it like this. And people like this who are willing to talk openly about this will do what they can to shaft you. Those talks, they're trying to get support for exactly that. I'll leave this here. It's fucking aggravating. It's aggravating to see this. Yes, I assume that they were going to find some way to shaft him, especially if he starts running away with it. The question is how. And it looks like between putting all of these Clinton supporters in the committees, John Podesta, Clinton's campaign person, to put him in one of the committees, to have these people who are lobbyists and whatnot in the committees, people who are antagonistic to Medicare for all and some of the climate change policies, to put all of these cretins into the party itself that are hashtag Never Sanders and expect a fair what the fuck? What the fuck? I think I said it before, that party needs to be burned to the ground and rebuilt because nothing gets accomplished with the Democratic Party that behaves and acts in these nefarious, disingenuous, lying through their goddamn teeth ways. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.